What's going on, you guys? This is All1, and I'm going to be giving you guys another Outriders video. So with this Outriders video I'm going to be giving you guys is going to be the best mods that you're going to want to make sure you keep an eye out for when it comes to an Anomaly Trickster build. Remember, this is only for an Anomaly Trickster, not for a Firepower Trickster, not for a Techno, not for Pyro, and not for Devastator. Some of these mods might be helpful or might be useful for certain builds, other builds, and whatnot, but this is just all for the Anomaly Trickster. Now, for this, most of them is going to be a lot of tier 1, tier 2 mods, so this is actually going to be very user-friendly in terms of your character. So if you decide to make a brand new Trickster and you're leveling it up, this video in general is going to help out because it's going to be able to tell you what mods you want to make sure you have if you want to use this build. So it's not going to be a lot of tier 3 mods as your best in slots. Some of them are actually tier 1s and maybe a couple of tier 2s as your best in slot, even for endgame. Now, this video is also pre-recorded, so I'm just doing a voiceover. I don't have a script or anything. So yeah, but we're just going to go ahead and go right into it. So for the first few mods, it's going to be for the skill called Hunt the Prey. Hunt the Prey is a teleport ability. This one is going to be for Backstabber. Backstabber lets you do damage to the enemy you teleport behind. Next you have Dance of Death, which decreases the cooldown of the skill by 20%. You have Radiation Jump, which allows you to apply vulnerability on an enemy that you teleport behind, but it's only one target. Unless you have a fast cooldown, then it would help, but otherwise it's not probably the best, but it is pretty useful. Don't worry about double stop. I don't know why I hovered over it. This one's hidden, but it's because I have cut loose on my chest piece. What it does is it reduces the cooldown of Temporal Blade, which is very, very useful. Strong Slice is pretty much needed for any Temporal Blade usage or any Anomaly builds for this Trickster because it's a huge damage increase for Temporal Blade. Slasher is really important because it gives you one extra ability use for Temporal Blade before it puts it on cooldown. So you get 2 uses before it goes on cooldown, making Slasher definitely a best in slot. Now you have all your Time Rift mods. Geiger's Wave. Time Rift, every enemy affected by the wave receives vulnerable status. So if you really want to apply vulnerability, use the Time Rift and Geiger's Wave over the vulnerability with Hunt the Prey. And then you have a little bit of pain. With a little bit of pain, it applies damage over time to every enemy that's affected, which, if you have skill Life Leech, it will heal you over time. And then Double Time is not too bad. It just leaves the enemies up in the air for 7 seconds rather than 3.5. Long Range is pretty much needed if you use Time Rift at all in your build, just because it increases the width and the length of Time Rift. Time Crack is nice if you're going more support, so that way all the enemies affected by Time Rift have their armor and resistance reduced by 25%, allowing you and your team to do more damage. Now, for the tier 2 mods, Untamed Power is a very useful and probably the best tier 2 mod for an Anomaly build in general because it allows you to make more space for DPS. Everything you do does damage. So you melee, you teleport, you do any of your 3 skills, those are damage dealers. So you're basically increasing your DPS from 1 to 100 just really quick. And basically because it does 30% based off of your Anomaly power, you get a nice AoE 5-meter radius damage boost. So I would highly recommend using Untamed Power on any Anomaly Trickster build. You have Rejuvenation, which increases your firepower, Anomaly, and armor for 8 seconds by a certain amount, depending on the level of your gear. And the cooldown is 10 seconds, unfortunately, but this is not bad because of the fact that you're always getting healed, regardless. You kill an enemy, you get healed. You use status effects and whatnot, you get healed. Damage Absorber is really good because it gives you armor and resistance. So if you're kind of like struggling a lot, taking a lot of hits and whatnot, then a Damage Absorber is going to be really good because it increases your survivability a lot more than not having that extra armor. It's basically doubling your base armor and giving you just 10% more resistance, which increases your status effect resistance. Crit Stack isn't terrible, but it's not really important because it is a 5-second duration, 5-second duration, but it's nice because it gives you an Anomaly build-up by 5 times, but up by 3,500. So it's not a bad increase. if you can constantly keep hitting crits on the enemy or the boss. Now you have Ashen Boost. You have pretty much like 5 different elemental or status effect boosts that'll increase your base damage for all damages by 15 to 20% depending on the boost. So you have the freeze and the bleed and the toxic boosts that'll increase your damage by 15%. The ashen and the fire or burn will increase your damage by 20%. Now I believe the bleed, poison, and or toxic and freeze do have a 20 or 25% increase in the tier 3 mod slot, but unfortunately I don't have any of those. So yeah, but the 15% isn't terrible. It's nice to use if you don't have Ashen Boost or Bullet Kindling. I would highly recommend using one of those two though, because it's just obviously more damage. Next you have Twice as Hot. So Twice as Hot, it basically works almost the same way as Untamed Power in a sense. When an enemy is burning and you use a skill, any skill, that enemy that's burned will take additional damage. So you can burn up pretty much everyone, and any skill you use, they will take more damage. So it's not bad. It's pretty nice to use or utilize. It's not something that you would need, but it is something extra for more damage. And then you have Martial Arts. Reduces the cooldown of your melee skills by 50%. This is actually really nice because this also opens more space for Untamed Power. That way you're able to kind of like spam Untamed Power a little bit more often, even though your melee attacks aren't going to be super high, probably around 100k if you're level 50. Item level 50, it'll probably be around 50 to 100k melee hits, depending on all the boosts you have or buffs. But yeah, I mean it's not a bad skill to go with because it's just faster cooldowns. It's like a 2-second or a 1.5-second cooldown. Brawl, on the other hand, is really nice if you do plan on making your melee attacks a lot stronger because it's 100% more melee damage, just doubling your base melee damage with all the buffs and whatnot. Exposing Strike is not bad, but I personally wouldn't worry about using it, especially if you decide to use Geiger's Wave with a Time Rift because you're applying vulnerability that way already. Because with Exposing Strike, you have to kill an enemy with a melee attack in order to apply vulnerability to enemies within a 10-meter radius around you. It's not a bad skill to go with though, but again, I personally wouldn't worry about it too much, but if it is something that you can unlock and you can't really use anything else, I would use it. You have Move Groove and Stand Tall. They're basically the same thing. They both give you Anomaly Power increase and Firepower increase. One for being out of cover and the other one for just moving around. So personally, I would go with Stand Tall over Move Groove because sometimes you do catch yourself just standing there, but for the most part, they're both going to be active pretty much at the same time all the time. And then next up, you have Perseverance Shield. Perseverance Shield has actually saved my life countless times because that 88-75 points of shield whenever my health drops below 30% is actually really nice. It's like Unbreakable in Division 2. When your health or your shield broke, your armor or your shield would regenerate after a certain, I think it was like every 2 minutes. Obviously, this is only every 5 seconds though. But the thing is, the shield it's not as strong depending on if you went in the middle tree or not. Now, Emergency Stance is definitely better than Perseverance because with Emergency Stance, Golem gives you a 65% increase in your damage reduction or damage mitigation. And then if you add Shield on top of that, that's an additional 5%. So you're looking at a 70% damage mitigation increase. Now, I do think Emergency Stance is bugged, but because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes when it does work, it stays on forever. Next, you have Shield Blast. Shield Blast, it basically triggers anytime you lose your shield, and it's a 5-second duration or a 5-second cooldown. And honestly, you're never going to be able to keep your shield up all the time unless you run a tank build or something. But for the most part, you're not really going to be able to keep your shield up pretty much at all. You can build your shield up to full, and then it's just going to die down if you get hit by a few hits. It's pretty nice, but it's not needed. Seismic Impulse is kind of like the Shield Blast in a sense in terms of a long cooldown, because it is every 6 seconds, dealing 96.9k damage to enemies within a 5 meter radius around you. If it was something like every 3 seconds, that would have definitely made it more useful, but the fact that it is every 6 seconds makes it like, but it's not a bad mod to go with if you are still starting out. Phantom Dash is definitely something I would highly recommend anyone and everyone to use if you do go with an Anomaly Trickster build. It just increases your mobility a lot more, makes it easier for you to get around, and the thing is, Phantom Dash has a faster animation than the actual dodge roll, as well as allowing you to dodge through your enemies as well. Sometimes you can get clipped on a corner or you can get stuck in an enemy, but for the most part, I would highly recommend Phantom Dash, because it is just a very powerful mobility mod. And now you have Shield Zap, and Shield Zap is not bad because it builds off of your shield. So however much shield you have is gonna be based off of the amount of damage you do, basically. So if you have any bit of shield, even a little bit, like 10% of your shield, you'll do damage to enemies around you. But it is a 5-second cooldown as well. Now for the tier 3 mods, as you can see, I don't have all of them, but for the ones I do have, these are going to be really good to use. Power Assimilation. Boost your anomaly power by 11k for each elite present on the battlefield. So if you have, let's say, 3 elites on the field, that's 33,000 anomaly power increase. So that's a lot of anomaly power. I personally don't use it because it is a little situational, because sometimes you won't have that many elites, and the fact is, when you get to level 50 with the best in slot mods and everything that I'm using, it's not really needed because you're going to burn them anyways, and then you're back to a normal amount. Captain Hunter is definitely by far the most important mod to have in order for the most damage output against the bosses, because that 25% damage to elites is going to be so good for just in general on every build, not just the Anomaly Trickster, but pretty much any build that does damage, you want to use that for. And then you have the Not Impressed mod if you just want to take 25% less damage from elites, but for the most part you don't really need it. And again, I don't know what the other legendary mods or tier 3 mods give, but Temporal Blade or Temporal Armor is actually really nice when it comes to survivability, because you're able to give yourself 50% more armor based off of how many enemies you affect with Temporal Blade. And the fact is, you have 2 Temporal Blades, so you'll be able to get 2 times always of the armor. And it stacks up 8 times, so you're looking at 400% extra armor for 8 seconds. And the thing is, when the timer doesn't go down when you hit the enemy again with Temporal Blade. Next, you have Pain Transfer. With Pain Transfer, this is what makes the Time Rift a lot more useful, not just for solo, but for groups as well, because it applies not just for yourself, but for everyone. It takes 10% of the weapon damage or 30% of the anomaly damage dealt from one enemy affected to all enemies affected. So if you were to hit like 10 enemies all at the same time with the Temporal Blade, it's going to hit that 30% will transfer to all of them. So you're going to be getting a lot of extra damage just from Pain Transfer. And yeah, I mean, if you do use a Time Rift, I would highly recommend it, especially if you use long range and whatnot. Then the last one is going to be the mod I didn't deconstruct yet because I only have this mask, but it's called Double Slice. Damaged enemies are additionally cut with an anomaly slice, dealing 50% extra damage. So with this, it's basically, I believe, after you've hit the enemy with a temporal slice, they just get an extra hit. You basically do an extra damage, and so it's like 2 hits with one temporal slice or temporal blade. So you do the full hit 100%, and then it'll do 50% of whatever you just hit additionally. That's pretty much it though with this video. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If it did, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section, and I'll try my best to help you guys out to the best of my ability. Now, like I said before, this is a mod video, it's not a build video. This will help you guys be able to make your build the way you want to make it just by looking at all the mods that are available for you. Now, I do have build videos that do show each like 3 different I guess 3 different ways of using it. I have a purple build video, and then I have the one with the time rift, which is my legendary build video, and then I have the storm solo build video, which is the one I currently use the most right now because it's the best, in my opinion, the best Anomaly Trickster build in terms of DPS and being able to solo and get gold on most of your runs. There's going to be some runs you won't be able to get gold in, like boom down and whatnot, but I mean, it's definitely worth the try. I'm going to be trying to get all gold on expeditions with my solo trickster builds. But yeah, for the most part, hopefully this video helped you guys out, and if it did, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. This is all Danny Day 1. Have a good day, good night, and peace.